Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Tech Talk with Bill Baer. My name is Dan Holm. I'm the CEO and co-founder of IT Unity, and...
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Awesome. So this week we are, as always, joined by Senior Technical Product Manager on the SharePoint team, the one and only and great Mr. Bill Baer. And we're brought to you thanks to the sponsorship of Colligo, so I'd like to give a shout out to our friends at Colligo for making this possible for all of us. And today we have, in fact, the last Tech Talk in a way. The last talking about SharePoint 2016 without having anything to really talk about in our hands yet Tech Talk. And today Bill has agreed to come and help us get ready for SharePoint Server 2016 preview, which we all know was announced to be released this month. So let's get the obvious question out of the way. Bill, can you tell me, when are you going to release the preview?
Oh, Dan, definitely a great question. So I can tell you where we're at today, and we have made some great progress since we announced that the preview would be available in August at WPC, and we've done a lot of work to ensure that the preview that we're going to deliver is exceptional in regards to quality. So where we're at today is we have a preview build. Our preview build's ready to go. We have a little bit of administrivia to go before we actually make it broadly available, but effectively we're on the eve of preview, which is why the topic today is preparing for SharePoint Server 2016 preview. So, you know, the net of it is we've made a ton of progress since July at WPC in Orlando when we made the announcement that we would be ready to go in August. We're still ready to go in August, and I know we're about midway through the month. And like I said, we've got a build ready. We just need to work out some fun aspects of the administrative part of getting a release out the door and broadly available to all of our enthusiasts. And, you know, that's about where we're at. So we're actually super close, and we're right there on the eve of shipping it. So it's going to be great to get preview out the door so everybody quits asking me when preview will be available.
Awesome. Well, Bill, let me ask you this then. On the day that the product is released, how about we get all of our friends here together at Tech Talk and have a Tech Talk on that day to help celebrate and unveil the surprises that you promised us in SharePoint 2016. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, that'd be excellent. I think that's actually a great idea. You know, in line with that, we should, in parallel to us making preview available, we should definitely have an out-of-band Tech Talk, which may or may not be on a Friday, and then we can come together and talk about what's in it, how do you get it, and what we expect of you as part of trying out preview.
Fantastic. And as part of that, everybody, we just today are unveiling a brand new show homepage for Tech Talk. It's at itunity.com/Tech Talk, and among the things that we're going to be doing with that page is you will only have to register for Tech Talk one time. Woo-hoo-hoo! You will no longer have to register for every single episode. So after today's Tech Talk, go to itunity.com/Tech Talk, sign up, and we will send you notifications of each episode as they happen, and you no longer have to register every single time. You can check out that page. It also will be where we can make it easy for you to get to all the recordings of past Tech Talks, because we've had some really good ones recently. We've had you talk about the preview. We've had you talk about the search and the cloud SSA. And actually, one little thing before we get into the preview today, Bill, do you want to talk a little bit about that cloud search SSA? Because I understand from some of our colleagues that it actually sort of got rolled out over the last week in the August 2015 public update.
Yeah, so we've done a number of things. Yeah, a couple of things with the August PU, and one of those would be the Cloud Search Service application. We had a Tech Talk a couple of weeks ago, and Neil Hodgkinson demonstrated some of the Cloud SSA's capabilities, the ability to create a unified index in Office 365 for a consolidated set of search results that goes beyond our traditional hybrid scenario of federated query, which means all of your entities are treated as a monolithic entity as opposed to two distributed stores where you federate a query between the two and you have you have a search vertical and separate result blocks in order to retrieve those. That's kind of the traditional methodology. And with our new Cloud SSA, we unify the search results. You get one result set back based on one singular query, regardless of where your content's stored, online or on-prem. But in addition, it also brings the Office Delve experience to your on-premises content. So within Office 365, you can click Delve through the app launcher, and you can search for content, and that content includes both your on-prem as well as your online search results. So it's kind of a really exciting part of our evolution of hybrid story that we've been talking about since Ignite, where our goals have kind of gone beyond just trying to mitigate migration concerns and evolving into a methodology through which we want to bring innovation back to your on-premises deployments. And, for customers, there's a variety of reasons why that makes sense. They want to maximize ROI on existing investments, or data sovereignty, regulatory, corporate compliance, data sensitivity concerns, customization, and a number of things. So this is just one of those ways in our evolution of hybrid story that we're going to bring functionality to you through hybrid. So you can think of these as cloud-connected scenarios as opposed to the traditional hybrid experience. In addition, one of the other things you may have noticed is if you log into the Office 365 Administration Center, as of recently as well, you'll notice under SharePoint Administration there is a new Configure Hybrid option on the lower left-hand side of the screen. And that Configure Hybrid options, or those options, is what we call our hybrid scenario picker. So if you log into the administrative console, click SharePoint, you'll notice at the bottom left-hand corner of the administrative options, there's a new hybrid scenario picker. Today is representative of our in-market hybrid offerings, which means it encompasses hybrid OneDrive as well as hybrid team sites. So effectively what it does is it programmatically helps to configure hybrid experiences for you. So one of the key pieces of feedback that we got over the course of the past 18 months was that hybrid was inordinately difficult to deploy. So we're making that a little bit easier now with our hybrid scenario picker that provides a programmatic method to configuring hybrid scenarios. So today it's representative of our in-market hybrid offerings, and then as we evolve into the future, you'll notice more scenarios are going to become available in the hybrid configuration picker. So that's brand new. I just did a blog on it today. One of the other things as well, so to get started with it, you want to make sure that your on-prem environment has this August PU installed. And once that's installed, you can go ahead and go out there and try that out.
Fantastic. Well, that's really, really exciting stuff. And Lyman, is my camera still working and my audio?
I can hear your audio.
Okay, my camera seems to be frozen. Yeah. So Bill, we'll take the advantage of my camera being frozen here to jump into the main topic, which is getting ready for SharePoint 2016 preview. Let's jump to you and the slides, and I'll work on my camera while you fill us in.
Yeah, sure. And as soon as slides come up, I'm going to go ahead and answer Fernando's question real quick. So he's asking about the results and how they become available with the new Cloud Search Service application. And effectively what happens is your content is indexed by virtue of this new Cloud SSA. And the index itself is actually unified in Office 365. So effectively, to simplify it to a certain extent, your metadata for documents, whether they're stored in Office 365 or on premises in SharePoint 2013 or earlier versions, is actually in the Office 365 search index. Regardless of where you execute a search, from an on-premises search portal or through the Office 365 search experience, you'll see results for both on-premises and online. If you click on a document that's on-premises, you'll be directed back to on-prem. So the document will open from on-premises as opposed to opening from the cloud. So effectively what you're doing is you're moving your index into Office 365. And there's a number of benefits. One is just that aspect of having that unified search experience. The other benefit is you can think about search as a service to a certain extent, to which from a capacity perspective, we bear the load or the burden of storing the index as opposed to you having to store the index on premises. So it doesn't necessarily change the way that your users access your content. So with that said, let's go ahead and move into talking about how to prepare for SharePoint Server 2016 preview. So, at the beginning of the show, we're on the eve of shipping SharePoint Server 2016 preview. And there's a number of different things that you can do to prepare yourself for getting ready for preview and bringing your servers or your virtual machines or whatever you've got ready up to date in order to facilitate the preview. So to get up and running quickly, there's a couple of different things that you want to do. Depending on how you want to start, you can start with what we call a 1M farm or effectively a one machine farm. And what you're going to want in this particular instance is you're going to want a domain controller at 2012 functional level. So that'll be your first virtual machine. And of course you can, if the machine I run it on is back here behind me, so effectively I just run it on a laptop and I have a DC with anywhere from 1 to 2 gigs of RAM because I don't have to worry about auth just when I'm, experimenting with SharePoint 2016. And then you'll want a separate machine that's running Windows Server 2012 R2 or Windows Server 2016 Preview as your core operating system. In addition, because we've removed the option for standalone installations, the installation that embedded SQL Server Express that prior versions of SharePoint supported, we no longer support standalone installations, so you'll want to install either SQL Server 2014, Service Pack 1, or if you want to experiment with future versions, you can install SQL Server 2016, and that can be on the same box that SharePoint is installed on. So, to summarize the story, you're going to need at least 2 machines in order to facilitate a small SharePoint environment, or what we refer to as a 1M farm. So one machine running Windows Server 2012 R2 or Windows Server 2016 Preview, and another machine that's your domain controller at 2012 functional level. To get started quickly and to avoid having to install prerequisites using the prerequisite installer, as soon as we release the bits publicly, you can start installing those as well on your Windows Server machines. So a couple of things you're going to want to install is the Windows Management Framework. You're going to want to get the Application Server role, the IIS role, .NET Framework 4.5.2, the update for .NET Framework, the SQL Server 2012 native client. You're going to want identity extensions, the Sync Framework, App Fabric, or what we used to call Velocity Cache, in addition to its updates, its first cumulative update, Identity Foundation, Information Protection and Control Client, WCF Data Services. So all of the things that are representative of what you used to install with SharePoint 2013. Over on the right-hand side of this slide, there's a download link available to you as well. So if you want to click on that, it'll take you to my blog to where you can find links for all of the prerequisites. So like I said, once the preview is available, you want to get up and running quickly with it. I'd get your virtual machines prepared. Your SharePoint server in a 1M farm can be anywhere from 12 to 16 gigs to what you want to allocate to it, depending on what your workloads are going to be and what you want to experiment with. On my machines, I typically run it at about 8 gigs of RAM with a DC at 1 gig of RAM, and it runs pretty fine in a single server environment. So copy down the URL. You can go there, and you can start downloading and installing all of the prerequisites. So once we release Preview publicly, you can just download it and run setup, and you don't have to worry about working your way through all of the individual prerequisites. There's a couple of role scenarios depending on what you anticipate doing with our preview release. There's the 1M farm. In a 1M farm scenario, the one we talked about just a second ago, where you have a single machine that you'll install SharePoint and SQL on, and another machine serving as a domain controller, you'll want to leverage the single server farm role, which will open up all of the capability for you to experiment with. So in a couple of tech talks, we've talked about min role, and you'll want to leverage the single server farm installation as the min role to get started with a 1M farm. If you're going to do a 2+ farm. So you'll effectively want to leverage many of the roles that we're going to offer in Preview as a component of MinRole. The web role, the application server role, search, and caching roles, depending on what particular features you're looking to experiment with. If you're a developer and you want to play around with some of the new APIs and some of the new things that we're shipping from a development perspective, you'll also want to leverage the 1M farm role. But in this case, you're going to look at custom role. Custom role allows you the flexibility that you used to have with SharePoint 2013 and earlier releases, where SharePoint effectively is role agnostic. So for IT professionals looking to just evaluate some of the capability in 2016 Preview, you want to leverage the single server farm role. For developers who are looking for a more robust installation because you want to experiment with some of the new APIs, you can leverage the new custom role as a component of MinRole. To answer Paul's question, you can use 2008 R2 domain levels. So you're not relegated to 2012, but you can use an older one. So we definitely support N-1 with SharePoint 2016. It's just, like I said, if you want to experiment and, kind of test the boundaries and push the limits, leverage Windows Server 2016, leverage SQL Server 2016, and SharePoint Server 2016 Preview. So then you can leverage many of the different capabilities that SharePoint 2016 Preview will offer you. From an upgrade perspective, one of the things we definitely want our customers to look at is upgrade. We're interested in understanding the upgrade experience with SharePoint Server 2016. So from a minimum requirements perspective or a prerequisite perspective for upgrade, you need to be running SharePoint Server 2013, but there is no baseline. So you may remember in earlier versions of SharePoint, we said, hey, you have to be running SharePoint Server 2010 Service Pack 2 is your baseline for getting, say, to 2013. But with 2016, we don't have a 2013 baseline that you need to abide by. Just be running SharePoint Server 2013. Hopefully, you're on Service Pack 1 at this particular point in time, but if you're not a big deal. You just need to be running 2013. Any of your backward compatible site collections, so if you've provisioned site collections in 2010 mode, or what we refer to as 14.5 mode, you need to upgrade them to 15 mode or 2013 mode. And then in order to facilitate upgrade, it's a pretty standard upgrade approach. It's database attach effectively. So take your services or your content databases and just attach them to your new 2016 farm. So getting started with upgrade is a pretty quick process as well. So like I said, getting started is effectively, because we're on the eve of preview, you definitely want to have your machines up and running. Have at least 2 machines starting with a domain controller and another Windows server that SharePoint will land on. Get SQL Server installed, get Service Pack 1 installed if you're running SQL 2014. And then on your other machine, make sure that you're getting the prerequisites installed. So really just preparing yourself to the only thing where you're going to have to worry about is just running setup on your SharePoint machine. It looks like you have a question, Dan. I'm going to pause.
Oh, no. Sorry, I was troubleshooting my camera. But there was a question from Paul, which is, with the requirement for Windows Server 2012 R2 or 2016 Preview, is there any requirement for the domain functional level of the domain? But Paul was asking if it, for example, means you couldn't use Windows Server 2008 R2 domain functional level within your domain.
Oh, you absolutely can. We recommend, moving forward with each subsequent release. We understand that identity is a difficult space. It's not, you're not just upgrading a machine somewhere, right? So we're not going to force you into a newer functional level. You can definitely have 2008 R2 to work with SharePoint 2016.
Awesome. And a quick question, Bill. I assume the upgrade process is basically the same as with 2010 to 2013, where you do the services first and then the content if you're going to do both?
Yep. You definitely want to start with your SAP applications, get those upgraded, and then from there you can work your way into getting the content databases upgraded. And it's one of the key things that we want to look at as a component of our preview release. We definitely want feedback on upgrade. We want feedback on setup and deployment. So those are of particular interest to us. So we want to understand how resilient upgrade was, what worked well, what didn't work well, what worked well from an infra perspective, so setup and deployment, what actually worked well, what didn't work well. We want a lot of feedback on MinRoll and our customer experiences with those, so that's another area where we're interested in some feedback. So we definitely want to see that as well. So there's going to be a lot of infrastructure investments that you'll find in 2016 preview that we want feedback on. And there's going to be a couple of facilities to provide feedback, so let's go ahead and talk about those. First of all, for server feedback, we're going to have a new TechNet forum. We'll share that on the day of the launch, so when we have our Tech Talk on launch day, we can share the URL for that. So we're going to have a TechNet forum dedicated to 2016 preview that all of our engineers will participate in. We'll also have a cloud search service application forum for customers that have questions or discussions around the new cloud search service that enables that unified index approach. We're going to continue to look at user voice, and obviously we also have Twitter. So, for technical discussions, support-related discussions, we definitely encourage you to leverage our new TechNet forums, which we'll share when we launch. For just general feedback and feature suggestions, we recommend you use user voice. And then if you just have anything you want to say or share broadly, hit us up at SharePoint on Twitter. So again, this is one of the first releases where we're really enabling feedback to drive us forward. And if you go out and you look at user voice and you filter by top 10 requests, you'll notice that on almost 60% of those requests, we're either working on it or it's something that we're thinking about. So we're definitely looking at that. We're allowing that to drive the way we're investing in 2016. So even though we're at preview, it doesn't mean that we're not still looking at that, and it doesn't mean that preview is going to be indicative of what our release will look like. Preview is going to be indicative of where we're at today and what experiences we want validation on. So, obviously, we talked about it in a previous Tech Talk. We definitely want a long tail or an extended period of validation as we continue to incrementally work forward. And getting preview out early enables us to do that. It enables us to validate some of those core infrastructure considerations, such as deployment and upgrade, while in parallel, we can continue to work on experiences. So that's kind of the benefit of getting preview out early is, one, it gives you an opportunity to perform validation against some of the core scenarios, while at the same time, we can work on some of those compelling experiences that make themselves available to end users. So real quickly, what I want to do is I'm just going to change the sharing here just to share something else. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I am going to share my desktop. So you should see my browser.
Almost. Now we see it.
All right, so here you can see that Office 365 Administration Center for my tenant, which looks like it is expired. No biggie, we'll take care of that. But one of the things I just show, time showing is better than telling. So the hybrid scenario picker. So if in the Office 365 Administration Center, you can come right down here to SharePoint Admin. So we can click on that. And if you would be so kind to let me know when that loads, Dan, that would be great. Just to make sure everybody can see it.
It's coming. I see your site collections.
Awesome. So you'll notice over here on the lower left-hand side, there's a new option available within the SharePoint Admin Center, which is Configure Hybrid. Click on Configure Hybrid. That leads you into our new scenario picker. So here we are. You'll notice that we're on a new page called the Cloud Driven Hybrid. And the Cloud Hybrid Picker today provides two options. So effectively, our in-market SharePoint hybrid experiences, hybrid OneDrive and hybrid sites. So what I can do is I can click on hybrid OneDrive, and that is going to fire me up into a configure.office.com URL. So we'll give that just a moment to load. And you'll notice that we have a new, effectively just simplifies the hybrid experience. So I can click Next, and what it's going to do is it's going to install a few things on my machine. This is actually my desktop, so this isn't necessarily going to work. So what it's going to initiate a setup assistant to help configure my on-premises environment. So I'm not going to go ahead and go that far since I'm on my desktop, but I just wanted to give a quick look at what that new experience looks like. So if you're not seeing that, I would encourage you to enable first release, and that way that'll appear and make itself available to you. So it's pretty early for this particular tool. As we move forward, it'll also include the experience as well. So you'll have that available to you. So you'll see that option pop up. And as we continue to add new hybrid experiences, you'll see that list grow. So effectively, you just want to go in there, click the option that you want or the particular hybrid scenario. It'll move you forward. It'll download a setup assistant to your machine. So you're going to want to run this from one of your on-prem servers. The setup assistant will guide you through configuring your hybrid experience. So, it's a world apart from where you had, pages and pages of PowerShell that you had to parse through in order to get hybrids set up and configured properly. Yeah, there was a couple of different ways we could have done it. We felt the right way was to embed it and just make it available to you through the SharePoint Admin Center so you can get up and running quickly. No, this is pretty much the last slide that we have for the preparation deck, and I'm kind of going through some of the questions. One from Ryan in particular about yeah. And I think depending on, each customer is individual. Every customer is a snowflake. So it's hard to say what a customer might find compelling. You have organizations who are hyper-focused on CapEx and OpEx. And you have other organizations who are hyper-focused on compliance and data loss prevention, maybe because they're a highly regulated industry. And then at the same time, you have a different set of organizations whose concern is really around user experience. So it's really hard to say what that one feature would be. The good news is we have something for all three of those personas. So if you're that organization that's focused on CapEx and OpEx, obviously you can think about functionality like min-roll. You can think about zero downtime patching. You can think about some of the advanced telemetry that we're bringing to 2016 that we demonstrated at Ignite. If you haven't seen that, I encourage you to watch the What's New for IT Pro sessions, and we did a brief demo of our telemetry vision for SharePoint 2016, which is a better take on something like web analytics because it provides more advanced functionality, and it really gives a great infra look in addition to a look in respect to how users are using features. If you're that organization concerned about data loss prevention, compliance, and security, if you remember from our Evolution of SharePoint blog post, as well as the session at Ignite, we had three value proposition pillars that we talked about. The first one being a cloud-inspired infrastructure. That is this idea of taking what we've learned from running SharePoint at scale and turning that into code. And some of the features that you've already seen and some of those we've talked about are representative of that pillar. Our second pillar was modern experiences, delivering a great set of modern experiences that provide modern collaboration and mobile experiences. We demonstrated some of the cloud opportunities we've accrued back to on-prem, such as the Touch Web UX that you'll find in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business coming back to on-prem. And we still have more to do for mobile. So there's some great advancements that you'll see over the course of successive preview and release candidate releases that will contain some of that functionality. So, there's going to be those, great file storage for users, great collaborative experiences based on the way that we've found to work with Office 365. So you've seen simple controls, durable URLs, image previews and video previews within document libraries. And then on the compliance side as well, that was our third pillar, so people-centric compliance. So we have investments in compliance and security as well. So investments in policy templates and investments in organization-wide holds in discovery, sensitive information types that enable you the opportunity to discover sensitive information based on simple KQL queries that you can execute from the Discovery Center. So, regardless of which one of those personas you fall in, we're going to have something available to you. I think you're muted, Dan. Yeah, I think from a customer's viewpoint, the eternal struggle is I want to take advantage of opportunities in Office 365, but the reality was with earlier versions of SharePoint, it was almost a wholesale proposition. You were either there or you weren't there. And we had some hybrid experiences like search that enabled you to rationalize data across both of those stores. But those experiences required you to have a foot in Office 365 and maybe a little bit deeper than you wanted to be. And we really wanted to live up to that cloud on your terms vision, to where we could deliver experiences to where even if you're on premises, you're no longer left behind by the innovation in Office 365, and that maybe is one concern a customer may be having today, which is they see the rapid pace of innovation in Office 3. They're not to quite move wholesale, and they want to take a parcel approach to Office 365. And our new hybrid innovations are really enabling them to do that. We're delivering on those experiences, which means you're not being left behind by Office 365. If you have those data sensitivity concerns, those corporate and regulatory compliance concerns, perhaps trying to what your on-premise looks like and how to best move appropriate content to Office 365, where we're delivering experiences that enable you to take advantage of innovation without forcing you to move at a pace that's more rapid than you might prefer as an organization. So we're really giving you the preference to move at your own pace, yet take advantage of innovation in Office 365. And we showcase some of that at Ignite, and we're already making some of that available. So our first investment from a hybrid perspective was we have to make it easier. And today we looked at one of the ways that we're making it easier. We also said we have to make it compelling. we have to enable individuals to take advantage of Office 365 innovation in a way that makes sense to them. So the cloud search service, or the hybrid cloud search, is an example of that experience. So we heard loud and clear, Delve is great, but most of my content is on premises, or all of my content is on premises, and I want to take advantage of that. So we're doing that. And then at Ignite, we showed and talked about some of the other experiences that will be enabling, beyond just hybrid Delve. So, we're looking across Office 365 and identifying different opportunities for hybrid. So you can imagine things like compliance having a hybrid component to them. So, it's really your way forward to taking advantage of Office 365 innovation, while at the same time, maintaining all of those investments that you've had on premises. Because we know a lot of our customers have been with us since the early days of SharePoint, which means you've collected a lot of information. Now, at the same time as you migrate, you don't want to migrate all of that information. You don't want to migrate documents that haven't been touched in 5 years to Office 365. So, the new hybrid experiences give you a way to leverage both Office 365 and on-prem and figure out, how do I want to move information moving forward? So defining that working set, non-working set, doesn't become such a hectic process, because you can do it over time and you can take the time necessary in order to facilitate that need. Sure. So the hybrid SharePoint sites approach, and it's a little bit of what we showed at Ignite. So if you think about the way that Delve works in a hybrid experience, you'll have cards, and those cards represent content that spans both on-premises and Office 365. So within the Delve view, you have cards representative of both on-premises and Office 365 content. In addition, you can also create boards in Delve that contain both on-prem and online.
And now there's all these amazing high business value.
So, using that as a backdrop, if you think about what the hybrid sites experience,
the compliance,
it's really a way to enable
everything you just mentioned. Plus,
you to rationalize sites across both on-prem and Office 365. So when either location, you can follow sites, you can follow people, and you can follow on-premise sites tab, and in Office 365 you have site folders. So from your site folders view in Office 365, in the past it used to be representative of those sites that you are members, or that you're a member of, only in that particular location. So in the sense of Office 365, and let me see if I can just take one moment to try to pull something up if possible. Otherwise, we can skip it in interest of time. I'm going to wait and see if I can, since my tenant expired and I won't have time to renew it. If I can get it to pull up real quick, so bear with me, and it doesn't look like it's going to let me show it. So anyway, coming back to that, if you think about the site folders experience in Office 365, today it shows sites that you're a member of or that you're following in Office 365. Moving forward with hybrid team sites, it'll show sites that you're a member of both in Office 365 as well as on premises. So it gives you a unified view into site membership, into people and documents followed. So it really pulls those two together. And then obviously from a navigational experience, one of the things that we talked about in a prior tech talk and that we demonstrated as well is that the app launcher within Office 365 will also be available on premises. So you can unify the navigation experience across both on-prem as well as online. Yeah, so you can definitely still, for sure. For sure, you definitely can have promoted sites within the site's experience. So you can almost think of when you click on sites, it's like SharePoint's home. It provides a way to see all of the things that matter to you because you've followed them or you've accessed them, you're a member of them. In addition, you can also have, you can do it in a number of different ways. So, one of the things that we do internally is we have a carousel of suggested sites. And that contains all of the sites that may be important to an organization. It could be a site related to human resources, a site for legal. So all those things you want to ensure that people discover, you can make those available those in different ways. You can just have a static palette of sites that you want to promote. You could have a carousel of sites that you'd like to promote. So you can do it in a number of different ways. But the short answer to the question is yeah. Yeah, so for MMS, it's another thing that we're looking at from a hybrid perspective. It's something that we've heard. So, we heard Delve as, one of those first things. As soon as we announced Delve, the first question we got is, okay, make it work for on-prem. And, we did that work. And the next thing we heard is, okay, it's hybrid. Hybrid's hard. So we're working to make hybrid easy. You saw a little bit of that today. We also heard that manage metadata. I need a consistent term store that spans both Office 365 as well as SharePoint on premises. So that's another aspect of work that we're looking at as well. So, like I said, what you see today is representative of in-market hybrid experiences. And, if you want to see what we're doing, enable first release and watch that hybrid scenario picker list grow because it's going to grow significantly as we work our way into next year. And I know Fernando's saying, yeah, and I think, one of the first things that we said as we embarked on this, the SharePoint 2016 journey, as well as continuing to evolve Office 365, kind of one of the first things that we talked about, or at least discussed, was the fact that we are very focused on customer feedback to drive these releases, not only to drive innovation in Office 365, but to drive innovation for on-premises as well. So that is why we started user voice for on-prem. If you think about it, prior to 2016, user voice didn't exist for on-prem. So we enabled user voice for on-prem because we wanted the feedback. And if we truly didn't want to act on feedback, we wouldn't have went through the effort to stand up user voice for SharePoint on-prem if we weren't going to look at it and take it seriously. So that's one of the that we did. And then, like I said, getting preview out early is another way for us to derive feedback from our customers to tell us what's working, what's not working, and just ensure that we're making the right investments while in parallel continuing to innovate. So it allows us to do two things at once as opposed to shipping a preview, waiting for feedback, and then continuing to build. We can iterate in a way that almost is indicative of the way that we can do things in Office 365. So working fast for responsive pages, support responsive design. So like I said, one of the things that falls within our value pillars was this idea of modern collaboration, which encompassed mobile. One of the first things that we invested in was one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit, which was, hey, we've already got this touch web experience in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business and Office 365. Let's accrue that back to on-prem. And we demonstrated that at Ignite. And then one of the other things that we talked about is that's only the beginning of our mobile journey. It's not the end of our mobile journey. So you're going to find that we invest in that more and more. And, as much as possible, I want to make sure that Preview has some surprises in it that will just enable you to discover. We definitely want people to get excited about it. But more importantly than anything else, we want your feedback. So, one of the key things to getting ready for preview, we talked about today, what are some of the simple steps that you can make to prepare yourself for experiencing the preview release. What we want you to do is definitely provide feedback. So it's great that you're installing it and that you're checking out features. Maybe you're looking at some of the APIs. But the most important thing is this is your opportunity to influence us moving forward. So once we announce it and we have our tech talk, we'll have some forums to share that you can participate in, user voice for feature feedback and suggestions, Twitter, if you just want to have a casual conversation with us. We're listening to all three of those throughout the preview period. For Oliver, any news on Yammer integration? Of course, we're going to continue to bring social forward with SharePoint 2016, SharePoint Social. So you'll have that available to you in 2016, but at the same time, we're continuing to look at different points of Yammer integration as well. So that's indicative of one of our hybrid experiences. So we'll continue to work on those. Now, we started some of that work with Service Pack 1, 2013, just to help from a NAV experience. We also invested in Yammer Embed, and we're going to continue to look for ways that we can bring Yammer and SharePoint closer together. We have customers that still like SharePoint Social, so we're bringing it forward. And, we have customers that want to leverage Yammer, but they also leverage SharePoint, and they want to bring those two closer together. So we look at those scenarios as well in order to help address both needs. Yeah, and I think that's actually an extremely important point. And I think we've been trying to get that across as much as possible. So one of the things that we said that we're doing is, and we announced that we're shipping preview this month. We're on the eve of getting there, and we're going to have a special tech talk dedicated to that. So as soon as the thing hits the download center and starts working its way through all the CDNs, you'll see an invite for a tech talk, and that will be kind of your cue that we've reached that moment. We're still dedicated to August, so don't get scared. We're in the middle of the month. We know it's August, and we know August only has a finite number of days. So we committed to August. We're going to do it in August. And the other thing as well is, as Dan mentioned, is preview is not going to be indicative of the final release of SharePoint Server 2016. And that should be made very clear because, that way you can look at what's there as opposed to focusing on what's not there. We know what's not there. And like I said, once we get there and you start to experiment with some of the features and capabilities that are there, when you do notice that something's not there, one, check user voice. See if it's something we're working on or thinking about, because that would be indicative of us, making it available at some point in the future. If you don't see it in user voice, go over to the forums and ask. We have all of our engineers looking at the forums. I'm looking at the forums once they're available. We'll share that as soon as we land preview. So if you don't see it on user voice as something we're thinking about or working on, take it to the forums and ask if we're working on it. We'll be as honest as possible. If it is something that we can commit to saying, we'll definitely say it. So And then lastly, hit us up on Twitter if you're not getting a response on forum either. So, one of the things we want to avoid is a lot of, hey, this isn't there, that's not there, this isn't there. We definitely want your feedback on what is there, and then ask if you don't see something that maybe you anticipated to see or that you'd like to see. Check user voice, make sure it's something that isn't there. If it's not there, ask us on the forums, and then submit a user voice suggestion that it should be there, and then get people to vote on it so we can determine the scope of the problem or the particular feature that you're looking for. So I think that's a kind of a key piece of thinking about previews. And for the question around sandbox solutions, will they be completely replaced? One of the key things is with SharePoint Server 2016, our objective is not to deprecate things and take things away. It's really to carry things forward for a variety of reasons. And those reasons are simple. One, you need to be able to upgrade. So, that's key. So, that's kind of key reason number one. Number two is, why take it away if it works? So, if it's something that you're using, we're not going to take it away from you. So that's kind of one of the, the motivations behind it. So, we talked about that at Ignite. Our goal is not to deprecate things in 2016. It's to bring things forward to enable you to upgrade, and we know that you're using them. For developers for 2016 development, to Eric's question, there's a number of different ways that you can develop with 2016 that we talked about. Obviously, you'll still be able to leverage full trust code, and that's one of the key things. That's not going anywhere. You'll still have the cloud app model available to you as introduced in 2013 with some advancements in making those experiences even better. And then as much as possible, we look to the work that we've done in Office 365 to figure out how much of that we can bring back to on-premises as well. So we really want to deliver a development model that's based on a philosophy of building a solution once and deploying it anywhere. So that's kind of our philosophy behind that. And, in the beginning of the conversation, we talked about for developers, leverage custom role. That way you get, the full suite of capability that 2016 offers. You won't be able to take advantage of min-role compliance and auto provisioning and some of the things that come with min-role, but you will have kind of that full suite of experiences available to you to begin working with. And then for IT professionals, leverage that single server role or go ahead and take that role-based journey. So we're interested in topology feedback as well as a component of this preview release. Yeah, so I saw that question and I meant to get to it. So the topologies we talked about for evaluating were based on the concept of 1M, which was that single machine farm concept, a domain controller, and a separate SharePoint plus SQL server. Then 2M, which was a larger topology that you can do anything you want with, and then there was kind of the developer single server experience. So in 2013, we supported it for developers. So the question is can you install on a domain controller? Yes, you can install on a domain controller with some of the same caveats that came with 2013. So a few tweaks here and there in order to support that scenario. But it's something that you can do. It's something that we only recommend for development environments, never for production. And then if you're looking to evaluate 2016 as a candidate to replace your 2013 environment, obviously you want to build your 2016 environment representative of the way you see it evolving, which won't be on a domain controller, I hope. And one of the easy ways to think about it is that min-role is our PLA. So PLA in the past was guidance on PLA in the past was guidance on how to deploy a server farm environment that was indicative of the way that we run SharePoint. not only did it arm you with all of our best practices from running SharePoint at scale in Office 365, but it also created an environment that was indicative of the way that our Office 365 SharePoint farms are configured. Now with 2016, all of that guidance is baked into the code. So there was a number of different ways that we could have done 2016. One, we could have documented the way that we run it and just given you SharePoint, or we could have just taken all that documentation and built it into code and given you aspects like min role and like zero downtime patching and some of these things. And we chose the latter, which is great for our customers. There will be some, core architectural guidance on how to use min role that would be representative of PLA. So, we're going to have topology guidance as well. So, if you have a farm that needs to support X number of users and you're looking for a certain RPS out of your front ends, we're going to give you guidance on how to build your topologies to complement your requirements. So you'll still have that, but at least in respect to how to provision services and, the logical architecture, that's going to be managed by MinRole. So it does reduce a lot of that as well. Yeah, sure. So, for sure, like I said, definitely start getting things ready for preview. We want as much feedback as you can give within the limited time that we have available. As we continue to move forward, we're getting preview out, earlier than we had originally announced at Ignite. So we've got a pretty good window to where we can take feedback, but that's the most important thing is feedback is what's motivating us and driving us forward. So we definitely want to hear it. Focus on the features that are there. Check user voice for the features that aren't there that maybe we're already working on. And then, ask. And we'll share some of the information about where you can go out and ask. And, if we don't have a great answer for you, go to user voice and submit a suggestion as well. So, there's definitely, and we really want you to push the boundaries and limits of SharePoint 2016 preview. So we want you to create large lists. We want you to have an inordinate number of site collections. We want you to really stretch it as far as you can stretch it and let us know where it breaks so we know and we can move forward with that. And like you said, I definitely have a ton of meetings. The more time I spend with you, the longer preview takes to get out the door. So basically, I've just thrown you under the bus and blamed you, for it. But if anything else, the last thing I have to say is it's Blue Friday, so go Hawks for all of you up here in the Pacific Northwest, or all of you that care about the Seahawks, which hopefully all of you do. Yeah, so like I said, we know how many days are in August. So we committed to August, and we know how many days are in August. So we won't have it on the 32nd. But like I said, we know exactly how many days are left until the end of the month. But I wouldn't go as far as being concerned about it. So we committed to August, and we're still in August. We're not even quite midway there yet. It's only the 14th. But that doesn't mean we're going to stretch it out as long as possible either. So like I said, we're ready to go. A few more administrative things that we need to wrap up, and then we definitely want people to take advantage of the preview experience, which is really arming us with all of your feedback so we can move forward and make this a great release. And as well, I can never forget to mention as well. So on-premises is just one component of SharePoint. Online is another, and you'll continue to see innovation in both places. And today we looked at one around hybrid. So. Great, thanks.